tell us about these prophecies that Eric started having in January of 2021. If you could
Okay.
get into that part, because
Oh
this is
gosh.
just
Yeah.
incredible.
This is crazy. Okay. So, um, he in January, looking back, I mean, I knew this at the time, but I was so focused on keeping him alive and getting him healed that I probably was in some denial over it. But I know that he knew he was dying. I mean, it was written all over his face, the way he started talking to me and making plans and the conversations that we were having. I mean, it was abundantly obvious what he thought was happening. Um, and so in not August, in January, he started just telling me things kind of like, Bethany, I want you to, like, keep your heart open. If I pass away, when I do, I want you to keep your heart open. I want you to don't let this hold you back. Um, those kinds of things. And I thought, well, that's sweet. That's nice, and I didn't really think very much of it. I
Yeah.
was so like mentally overwhelmed with everything else that, and he
Yeah.
a lot of times would just kind of mumble things. He was on so much medication, half the time he didn't know what he was saying. And so I thought, well, okay, that's sweet. Like, thanks, babe, and I'd carry
Yeah.
on. Um, and he started doing that more and more frequently with every month that passed. And after about the third or fourth time he did that, I thought, man, maybe I should like write this down in a notebook.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I started writing down what he was saying, and I'd write it down. And it was almost like a task on my list to do. I wasn't really like thinking about what he was saying. I just kind of wrote it down and put it on the bedside table and kept on, with my
Yeah.
billion things I had to get done.
Right.
Um, and then around March-ish, he started saying that like things started getting a little bit more specific, and he started saying things like, things are going to happen really, really quickly, and I want you to keep your mind open, and I want you to keep yourself available. And this is not the end of the story, and someone's coming who's going to fill my shoes, and someone's on their way, and I can see that person, and
Oh
they're
my
going to protect you, and it's okay. It's okay to basically love again. And again, I would write these things down, and I would think about them from time to time, but they weren't high on my priority list. And then,
God. Yeah.
there's the weird factor too, because you're like, you're still here. Like, I'm still married to I'm still
Yeah.
married to you. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about you dying. I mean, it's obviously happening, but let's like, can I get through this before we move on? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or move
Yeah.
forward. I don't say move on. Don't really ever move on. But and then in April-ish, um one of the last weeks that he was able to really be in conversation,
Mm.
he started naming someone by name that we both knew, and who had been a mentor to our sons, in the church that we had previously gone to. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. And he started saying things like, um, make sure that Keith's voice is one of the loudest voices in the kids' lives. Make sure that Keith has a lot of influence, in the family's life and all this. And I thought, well, that's nice. He was the boys' mentor and, all this stuff. And then, it was basically like, Keith is the one who's going to be taking my place. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we went on, and then
You're
he
like,
was, you know,
okay.
yeah, and I thought, Keith is perfectly lovely and perfectly nice and everything, but like, I've got like a lot going on here. And it was just a really weird, it was just like, I'd never heard of anything like this happening before. It was very surreal and very like, what is actually,
Yes.
and so after, and then, he, as time's going on and he's getting more specific with these prophecies, he's also declining very, very rapidly. And so I am completely consumed now with taking care of him in all aspects physically, because he, at this point, he can't walk anymore. He can't, like, everything, has to be done for him. And so then he passed away, and of course we're deep in the throes of grief, and we're talking about who should do his service at our celebration of life. And we had like a family festival kind of thing in the backyard. That's what he wanted. And
Mm.
so we had face painting and games, and it was just like a big family party kind of thing. And um, my parents who know Keith and know his family, my dad was like, how about Keith does it? You know, he's a pastor and he knows, the family and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so Keith preached his service, and then, time went on, and Keith would check in on the kids and he'd check in on me, and we would text back and forth, and, you know, all of these things. And then things kind of just developed, and it's nothing, it was really God that did all of it, because it was just completely, there's no way we could have written the story that was written. And in September-ish, I had several of my friends pull me to the side separately without knowing the others were doing it.
Oh my God.
And they would pull me aside and they'd say, Bethany, like one of them was like, Bethany, God told me, God spoke to me at Eric's life, celebration of life. And I feel really weird telling you this because Eric just passed away, but like the Holy Spirit has told me that Keith is the one who's taking his place. And I was like, and
Oh
she's
my
like, this particular friend's like, have you thought about that before? And I was like, this is strange. And then like a couple days later, another friend was like, hey, I just felt like God telling me, over the
God.
past month or so, like, I've just felt this need to pray for you and Keith. And, and then my kids would say things like, there was like one of my sons in particular, he would always watch football with Eric. That was their thing.
Mhm.
And he told me last fall when football started, he was like, Mom, Dad told me that somebody's coming who's going to watch football with me.
Oh
And
my
I was like, well, that's
God.
nice. I said, oh, that's nice. And I thought maybe, maybe he's talking about me because like I'll do it just because I don't really like football, but I'll do it for you because, it's like, a love thing to do for your kid. And then
Yeah.
he looks at me and he looks at me and he goes, I think that someone might be Keith. And I was like, oh,
Oh my God.
okay. Like, and so it was just like instant like this, like over and over. When I talked to my parents, my dad was like, oh, when I shook his hand, I just knew like this man's going to be my son.
Oh
Eric's
my God.
parents told me they felt the same thing. They knew the same thing. They knew weeks before I had even a clue, like
Right.
all of
You're
these
like,
different things. And it's, it's just been, it's, I don't know, it's just been something so surreal. And I literally, things would happen and Keith and I would look at each other and be like, we couldn't make this up if we tried. We couldn't write this story if we tried. Like
no,
the details are so intricately woven, divinely connected that it's been
divinely
quite a journey, quite a
orchestrated.
journey.
It's just like all of these things that lined up and different people telling
Yeah,
you from different sources. Everybody is talking about
I
Keith.
know. Yeah,
It's
everybody. And I
amazing.
had no, like, I mean, Eric had mentioned things, but I had no, I was not focused on any of that. I thought, like, if anything, like that time is not right now. Like I need to get through,
Mm,
I need to do this and the other. And then it was kind of like all of a sudden it was in front of me. And it was kind of like God had sent all these people to just confirm like, this is okay.
yes.
And this is what I have next for you. And, when I thought about it, I thought, man, two things really stood out to me. And the first was Eric's obedience in telling me that, because I thought he
Mhm.
could have just kept that to himself,
I
like
know.
what a selfless act of love to feel all of those things and hear that and then tell me about them and tell me, I mean, who was going to raise his
Right.
kids, with me. Like that
Right.
was just remarkable. Like I couldn't get over it. And
So
then,
selfless,
the
like you
other thing is
said.
that yeah, that everything has just been so seamless. I mean, I really that's what it's been. And I just I'm just
So
so
my
I feel like I'm
I
just overwhelmed with gratitude.
I have a